Welcome back to the Tavino Show. I'm Dan Ahlstrand. Hope you're having a fantastic Thursday as we roll along. We can almost see it, right? You can almost see the finish line. It's almost there. Tomorrow is Friday. Looking forward to it. Our next guest, I think, probably has my dream job. And the reason why I say that is, as a youngster, my mother used to get mad at me for digging holes in the backyard. I always said I was looking for treasure, but I was probably just being one of those kids anyway. Our next guest does that, but he does it for scientific reasons, and he gets to look at old maps all the time, and they're my favorite, and that's Jonathan Fowler, archaeologist. How are you, sir?
Good day, sir. I'm pretty good. And I got to say, before we get into it, you're welcome anytime. If you want to join us and spend some time in the field, no need to remain frustrated.
Right? No, it's, you must have the most fascinating job ever, digging up old things and researching things and doing comparisons like these maps. It must be just fascinating each and every day.
It's great. Yeah, I'm lucky to be able to do it, and I'm really lucky to be able to do it with a bunch of really cool young people as well.
Jonathan, tell me a little bit about this latest survey that you did. You took a bunch of maps from the old days of Halifax and overlaid them on modern-day Halifax, and you came up with some pretty disturbing findings.
Yeah, that's it. And speaking of young people, it started as a project over at St. Mary's in the anthropology department. I teach a course there called The Archaeology of Halifax, and we kind of use the city as a giant artifact, and we, move around the city and study it and different things like that, look at old maps. And we began this project by looking at a map that was published in 1878 by a guy named Hopkins, and it's a city atlas. It lists every building, shows every building, almost 9,000 buildings on a series of plates or pages. And what we did was we georeferenced these. We put them in a computer and we attached them to the modern landscape so that we can make comparisons between what was there then in 1878 and what's there now. And what we attempted to do was really just inventory all the old buildings. So how many buildings from 1878 Halifax are still here? And that's the project.
What'd you find? You found that a lot of them aren't still here?
Correct. We all know the city's changing rapidly. We see it. We feel it when we're in traffic, believe me. But we haven't up until now, we haven't measured that change, or at least that change, the impact of that change on the built heritage resource. So we discovered that about 87% of the buildings from 1878 are gone. There's about 13% left.
Is that normal for a city like Halifax? I know it's hard to compare in North America because Halifax is one of the oldest places in our area, but is it normal to see that level of the old buildings gone? It's
a great question, and it's a fair question, and it's a question that I just don't have an answer for, right, because we haven't done the comparative work with other cities. However, the purpose of this was to launch us into a greater study of these very dynamics. And what we've done is we've created a baseline for Halifax, and hopefully we'll hear from other folks from other cities. And we're also going to take a look at other maps of Halifax. We're going to now go forward in time and backward in time and track these changes over time and see what we can learn.
What's the oldest map that we have of Halifax? Does it go right back to the founding?
Yeah, indeed. So Halifax was set up as a British post, as we know, in 1749, in the summer of 1749. But, I mean, there were people living here for far longer, Mi'kmaq people and ancestral populations. There was even a French fishing station here. There were French plans to develop a naval station here, a settlement. So we've got maps that go right back through the 1740s, even the early 1700s. But in terms of the city itself, what we know as modern-day Halifax, it really gets started in 1749. And we've really got great maps from then all the way up.
This map from 1878 had just under, 8,900, but just over 8,900 buildings. There's still 1,143 that are here. That feels like it's a lot.
It's a pretty good number. The issue is that it's depreciating rapidly because a lot of these buildings are heritage in the sense that we've inherited them, but they don't have any heritage protection. The majority of them have no formal description, registration, protection. So their owners can basically knock them down if they wish. And so what we're seeing, and there was a recent HRM staff report a few years ago, 2019, 2020, I think, that indicated that over the 10 years prior to that, so 2009 to 2019, something like 30% of the old buildings in the downtown core were demolished. So there's a lot still in our bank account, you might say, but man, we're making withdrawals pretty heavily.
146 years old. Are most of these buildings homes or houses, or are they commercial buildings, or are they a combination of both?
It's a real mix. I would say the majority of them are probably houses, but Hopkins map counts everything, and it includes a lot. There was a lot of industrial activity in the city at that time. There were a lot of horses in the city, so there were a lot of stables and barns and things like that, a lot of outbuildings, and most of those have gone. But the overall, I'd say most represented in the class of buildings is probably dwellings.
You've been digging around Halifax for a long time, Jonathan. What's the coolest thing you've discovered?
Oh, wow. That's a tough question to answer, but I'll say I'm going to sort of whet your appetite and just say that one of the coolest things that I find about early Halifax is the defensive features, the early town wall and whatnot. And we are currently engaged in a project now where we're working on that. And we don't have it quite yet, but we're still looking. And so fingers crossed, I'll be able to answer that question in another year or so with a positive answer.
So there's remnants of the original town wall that you found? Question mark?
Well, I think so. We've got it in the mapping, and we're presently out there with ground penetrating radar and whatnot, and we're trying to locate bits of the city that have not been so heavily built on that there's a fighting chance that we might get pieces of these defenses still preserved.
With all of this construction that's going on in the city and digging holes, are we finding more artifacts because of that?
Yeah, it is the case. Here in Nova Scotia, we have what's called the Special Places Protection Act, and it's a piece of legislation that governs archaeological work. And basically it says that if you're going to dig around, you need to do the archaeology before you disturb things. So a lot of these construction projects trigger an archaeological review and mitigation, as almost like it would an environmental review. And so a lot of work is being done, not only in Halifax, but around the province, 100, 150 more projects a year. And that's all being administered by the Special Places Program, part of our provincial government.
Well, Jonathan, I know you're a busy guy. I appreciate you spending a few minutes with us today. And if you need my set of hands, then just drop me a line.
I know where to find you now.
Got it.
Don't worry, we'll be in touch.
All right, Jonathan, appreciate it.
Thanks for your interest.
Jonathan Fowler, an archaeologist. What a cool job. Wouldn't it be just to dig up the past and you get that aha moment, right? When you think, like, let's use the wall as an example. You know it's there, you've seen it on the maps, and you start with this process that they're at now, and they're digging or with using ground penetrating radar, and then to uncover it, something that we haven't seen for, oh my goodness, a couple hundred years. How cool is that? And it's very cool that we have people like Jonathan and his team that are doing the legwork on these maps and raising the awareness about some of our history. I know that, and I know I talk about him a lot, but I know that Rick was very, very much into preserving history where we could, and we're very lucky to live here. We live in one of the oldest cities in the country, and we have history here, and some of it needs to be protected, and that's why Jonathan and his team are doing outstanding work. What a cool job.